This is where Adventure Bound started. I worked for a fella named Keith Counts, who founded Adventure Bound Rafting Expeditions in 1963. His first expeditions were on the Yampa and the Green River, and at that time there was no permitting processes. All you had to do was get your group together and take off down the river. Adventure Bound began when Keith Counts got a grant to do a Head Start project through the schools. And the Head Start project bought the military boats for him, and then us as Eagle Scouts built the equipment and the frames and all of the oars and those kind of things. We didn't have dry bags, and we didn't have gas stoves, and we didn't have a lot of the framing and things like that. The boats were very big, very awkward, very cumbersome, and on some of them took 2 guys to row the boat. Nowadays, virtually all of the boats are in the 14 to 18 foot length. There wasn't any permitting process. The Park Service usually had a ranger that swept the river if he knew a trip was going down. He would be the last boat going down the river to make sure everything was safe.
I worked for Adventure Bound all the way through the 70s. Then in 1980, the owner of Adventure Bound was looking for a new manager for the operation in Craig. I managed for him and kind of kept track of him and his operations for 4 seasons, and then a transition came, and it was time for Keith to kind of step away from the business, and through a loan from my grandfather and worked with the Park Service, and then doing some transfers, I actually purchased the company in 1985. I rounded off to 33 years is what we did it. I think the Adventure Bound legacy has got roots in the beginnings of river running. There were people that were true pioneers just prior to Adventure Bound starting, but when Keith Counts began running, we were an independent company out of Colorado and doing multi-day trips and doing them kind of on our own. Our capitals were very obscure places, and we sort of have a legacy of being very independent. The legacy is some hardcore people that played very hard, and worked very hard. We were the company that always played very hard, and we always were on top of a lot of amazing stories, and everybody just sort of admired us. Boy, you guys really have fun, don't you? And then we always had a lot of pride in saying, yes, we do. Our way of being isolated over in Colorado, we just had our own way of doing things. And some of our equipment and some of the way we pulled things together, our big cataract rigs, were different than everyone else's. But at the time, we always put together things. We figured out how to put the transom in the right place, and we could outrun everybody. We was just sort of those guys that figured it out from the raw edges. Didn't copy anybody else, we just figured out how to do it on our own.
I had been friends with Tom Kleinschnitz for some time. We'd done a lot of joint projects together, worked on industry issues, and I'd really gotten to know Tom. And as he started to think about phasing out of Adventure Bound, I expressed some interest, and eventually we came to a meeting on the mines that kind of brought Adventure Bound into the Mild to Wild family. And you know, I felt really fortunate to not only have shared this friendship with Tom, but to take over a company that he'd done such a great job with and built such a legacy around. Mild to Wild really wants to embrace the Adventure Bound legacy. I mean, there's 70 years of history there, and it's been such a stalwart of the rafting community and industry as it's grown up out west on the Colorado River Plateau. I mean, I didn't really even realize getting into it how much history there was, but the more people I meet and the more stories I hear about past guides, about past adventures, about interactions with Tom, and even going back to the days with Keith Counts, it feels really special to be part of that legacy and have an opportunity to carry it on.
We not only value the multi-day opportunities in having these amazing canyons to share and riverways to share, but we also value the loyal guests that have come along with Adventure Bound. And we have found that it's been a good match into the Mild to Wild mission, which is to create a deeper connection with nature, adventure, family, and new friends. Our goals and visions for Adventure Bound is to continue the excellence in guest services that Tom has passed on to us, meld it with the Mild to Wild family, and continue for decades and decades in offering amazing adventures.